Right before you sent that message, the one that said, "I'm not feeling well tonight," there was a single second, where you knew, completely and quietly, that you weren't sick, you weren't tired, nothing came up, you just didn't want to go, and you sent it anyway. And the moment it was delivered, something in your chest loosened, like you'd been holding a breath since the morning, like the whole day had been pressing on you, and that one message made it stop. For a few minutes, everything was exactly right. Then you picked up the phone, opened the app, checked if they'd seen it, not to take it back, not because you felt guilty, just to confirm they were still there, that the connection you just avoided was still intact. Read that again. You canceled to get away from them, then immediately checked to make sure you hadn't lost them. That contradiction. That's the whole video. And by the time this ends, you won't be able to look at the way you pull away from people the same way again. We'll get to why, but there's something I need you to see first. You've been doing this longer than you think. It doesn't always look like canceling plans. Sometimes it looks like taking an hour to reply to a simple message. Sometimes it looks like watching someone's story without texting them directly. Sometimes it looks like having a conversation in your head with someone you haven't talked to in months and never starting the real one. You have entire relationships that live almost entirely inside you, and here's what no one tells you about those. They feel safer that way. In your head, no one pulls away, no one gets busy, no one says the wrong thing, no one sees too much. And the second you make it real, the second you actually send the message, the real version might not match the one you've been carrying, so you keep it inside, and you call it not wanting to bother anyone. That's not consideration, that's control. But here's where it gets worse, because this pattern, the canceling, the delaying, the watching from a distance, it doesn't stay at the same level. Every time you withdraw and feel relief, your brain logs it. That was the right call. Staying home was safer. Being alone worked. Every single time. And slowly, without any decision, without any moment you can point to, the friction of being with people gets higher. The energy it costs to show up feels larger. And the threshold for choosing yourself over connection quietly lowers and lowers and lowers. Until one day you realize you haven't made real plans in 2 months, and it didn't feel like isolation. It felt like preference. That's the loop, and you didn't build it consciously, but you've been feeding it every day. There's something underneath the pattern that I haven't said yet. Something that explains why the relief always fades, why the silence after canceling never stays comfortable, why you end up checking the phone, reopening the chat, scrolling the profile of someone you just chose not to see. We'll get there. But I need you to feel the weight of the pattern first, because most people rush past it. They see the behavior and immediately want the explanation. They want to understand it so they can file it somewhere and move on. But moving on quickly is also part of the pattern. So stay here for a second. Think about the last time you genuinely wanted to reach out to someone, not because you needed something, just because you missed them. You opened the message, you started typing, you read it back, and you deleted it. Why? Not "I was scared," not "it felt weird." Why, specifically? Because that moment, that exact moment of deletion, is where the whole thing lives. Something happened. I don't know when. You might not either. But at some point, in your body, not your mind, being close to someone became linked to the possibility of pain. Not the certainty, just the possibility. And your nervous system made a decision, a very quiet, very permanent decision. I will be the one who controls the distance. Psychologists call it avoidant attachment, but that word makes it sound cold. detached, unfeeling. That's the opposite of what this is. The people who pull away the hardest are almost always the ones who feel the most. Sit with that. They don't avoid connection because they don't need it. They avoid it because the need feels like a wound they can't protect. Because wanting someone, really wanting them, means they have the power to leave. And somewhere in your history, someone did, or threatened to, or made you feel like you were too much for them to hold. And your system learned, get there first, create the distance yourself. That way, it can never be taken from you. That's not coldness. That's self-preservation so deep it became personality. And here's where the dopamine comes in. Because this isn't just emotional. Your brain is chemically locked into this cycle. When you cancel and feel relief, that's a real reward. Your cortisol drops, your body settles, your brain marks it, correct. But then the silence comes, and the uncertainty creeps in. Did I hurt them? Are they pulling back? Did something change? So you check. And in that checking, your brain is hunting for resolution. A resolution that never fully arrives. So you check again and again. That's not anxiety. That's the cost of a system that was built to avoid pain, but never learned how to be okay without it either. Withdraw, feel relief, feel empty, check, get partial reassurance, feel the pull again. That's the loop. And here's what makes it so invisible. It feels like personality. It feels like you're just like this is who you are. But here's the part nobody notices. You don't do this with things you don't care about. You don't agonize over canceling something you never wanted. You don't reopen conversations with people who don't matter. You don't check the profile of someone you feel nothing for. This only happens with the people you actually want. Read that again. The withdrawal is proportional to the want. The more you pull away from someone, the more they mean to you. And now we're at the part that's hardest to look at. Everything I've said so far has an explanation. The attachment pattern, the dopamine loop, the nervous system response. All of that is real. All of it is true. But there's a layer underneath all of it that none of those explanations reach. And this is where it stops being unconscious. Every time you cancel, every time you delete the message, every time you let a connection slowly go quiet because maintaining it asked more than you felt you had, you are not just protecting yourself from pain, you are confirming something about yourself, a belief that has been running underneath everything. The belief that if someone truly saw you, not the managed version, not the one who always responds thoughtfully and keeps appropriate distance, but the actual you, the full version, the one with the real need, they would leave. You've never fully tested it, because you've never fully let anyone in. You keep the dosage low enough that no one ever has to decide. And the genius of this system, the reason it's so hard to dismantle, is that it works. You are never rejected, never abandoned, never caught in that specific devastating exposure of reaching and meeting nothing. You have complete control. But look at the cost. The friendship that faded 2 years ago that you still think about more than you admit. The relationship that had something real in it, that you kept just far enough away until they eventually stopped trying to close the gap. The version of yourself that used to be more open, less managed, less careful. You can still remember them faintly, but you can't quite get back to them. And now that you see it, you'll notice it everywhere. In the half reply you send when you could have said more. In the plan you let expire without ever confirming. In the way you tell yourself you need space right before the thing that scared you was actually getting close. You're not protecting yourself. You're proving something over and over again. You're proving that you were right to be careful, that closeness costs too much, that the distance is safer, and every time you prove it, the belief gets stronger, and the wall gets quieter, and the alone gets more familiar, until it doesn't feel like a choice anymore. It feels like a fact. This is just who I am, but it's not. It's what you built, carefully, brick by brick, in response to something that hurt you. And the building worked. It kept you safe. But somewhere in the building, you got sealed inside. I'm not going to tell you what to do with this. There's no instruction that follows this kind of seeing. But I want to leave you with one question. Not a big question, not an overwhelming one. Just this. The next time you feel the pull, to cancel, to go quiet, to let something slowly disappear, ask yourself if you're choosing it, or if it's choosing you. Because there's a difference. And you know there's a difference. You've known for a long time. You just didn't want to say it out loud.